Peter Charles here, Folk to Fly, Fly Fishing. And throughout this series of videos, I keep talking about D-loops that have energy, or energetic D-loops. And I've discussed a number of ways we can achieve this, because having an energetic D-loop makes a huge difference in how well we cast. If you have this wimpy, floppy D-loop that just sort of falls out of the air, you're not going to get a good cast. And a lot of people, when they have a bad D-loop, resort to thrashing the rod to try and turn it into something decent. So what I thought I'd do is put together a video that shows a bad one and a good one, and how we got into the situation with the bad one and how we got out of it with the good one. So let's get started. And we're going to deal with a D-loop that has no energy and why it doesn't have any energy. Look where I started from. Rod way up in the air. You should be starting with your rod tip low. I'm starting with my rod tip out of the air. So all through here, I've got slack line all through there, which is bad news. You don't want that slack, because as soon as you start moving your rod, it's not loading all that well. So let's get going here. I start into the sweep, and then I make my cast. Yuck. Awful. Now there goes the good one. Boom, energy. So let's break this down. So right off the bat, the lift is too high. I start too high and I lift too high, and I'm lifting quickly. And this all goes together. You start your lift high and you keep going higher. There isn't much load there. There isn't much feel. So the tendency is to pull it and rush it because there isn't any real load. So you substitute this quick, rapid motion. You're starting up here and you're like this because you don't have any real feel of it because of all that slack line, a big droop of line that, from that wimpy pickup, because you started way up here. So now I've gone way up in the air. I picked up some load now. You can see the line is now looking straight. So now I'm starting to get some load on the rod. So how much I've moved that rod, and I'm only just starting to get the load now. So you can see why you tendency to rush. So, okay, I continue on. Oh, I'm slowing and dropping. Oh, that's not good. And what happens is when you start high and you lift even higher, you got to get the rod back down again. And the tendency is as you drop the rod, as you're coming back down, you're slowing down. And what happens when you slow down, where does the rod load go? Out the window. You don't have one. So now we're sweeping, we're dropping, and right here, I know it's hard to see in the video, but when I enlarge it on my big monitors upstairs, you can see that rod is dead straight. There's no load. So that whole arc I just went through here, there's nothing. The rod's unloaded, and it's not even cast a D-loop yet. So I'm in trouble at this stage of the game. This cast is not going to go anywhere. So at this stage, now look what's happening to the D-loop. It's just dropping. I mean, it's going. So it looks like my model here. Quite literally, you've got this very steep line, which is, you can see on the video and on the model, it's exactly the same. And one of the things you get into is, I'll put this fly here this is where I want my anchor to land, but because there's no energy in the D-loop, the anchor lands way in front of me. So, and it crashes, so it all piles up. So you've got all these things going wrong. The anchor's too far in front, but then it piles up, creates tangles, creates a mess. The D-loop just drops straight down, so it's just dropping like this into the water. There's no energy at all. Nothing to make it go backwards. It just is awful. And we'll just keep going, and we'll see what happens here. You see it crash into the water. And at that stage, the whole bottom of the D-loop, it looks like this. The whole bottom of the D-loop is sitting on the water. I got to point to my D-loop, except it's pointing down. And that's the other problem we get into, is when we drop down, we have a tendency to drive the D-loop into the water. So you're crushing your anchor, and you're driving the point of the D-loop. Like right there, you bang right into the water. And the whole bottom of the D-loop is laying on the water. You can see right here. And your anchor is way over here somewhere, way out in front. All crashed up. Actually, it's piled up like that. It's more the truth. It's made a mess. So you're in bad shape right here. And really, your only opportunity, if you want to get a cast off, is now to thrash it, because it's not going anywhere otherwise. And in this case, it doesn't go anywhere. I just lay it out in front of me. I don't even bother trying to get a cast out of this. I'm not going to hurt my shoulders. So, okay, now we got a good one. I started with that rod very low. Okay, my rod tip was almost touching the water when I started the lift. And I don't delay. I don't lift up and stop. I make my lift and I keep going backwards. So the lift and the sweep, you can't really see where the lift ends and the sweep starts. So I'm sweeping low and flat. The line is nice and tight. The rod is loaded all the way. And the rod only loads when I make the stop for the back cast, because we're making a stop, just like if you're overhead casting. And now the rod unloads to fire the line backwards. It's not like before in the previous version, it unloaded earlier in the sweep. So by the time I got to the stopping point, there was no load on the rod. And all it is what's left of the momentum the line is carrying back. So now the D-loop's going back with energy. I get a point on it. And the bottom of the D-loop's not touching the water. It's just, I'll put it in my model here. So now the bottom leg of the D-loop is completely off the water. We've got a really sort of a nice point to that. And it's actually quite a bit higher. So the top leg is getting close to being horizontal with the water where we want it. We got lots of energy in that D-loop, and you can see the shape of it. There's no wiggles. There's no funkiness going on. It's tight all the way through, which is what we want. And of course, it rolls out with energy and goes out like a rocket, and actually, bounces at the end because it has so much energy. So that's basically the difference between these two. And there we go. Look at that. The difference between the D-loops. One that's no energy, crashing anchor, bottom is falling out onto the water. And the other one, the bottom stays off the water and got a point to it, and it's going to go. And the difference is all in that lift and sweep. You start with the rod tip almost on the water, and then you make a low lift, and you go into your sweep all in one motion, lifting and sweeping in one motion. And your sweep is around head height, maybe a little higher. It'll depend on what you've got on the end, whether you've got a sink tip or not. You might go a little higher if you're extracting a sink tip, stay a little lower with a floater. But the point is, it's not high. Your lift is low, and you're going back, and it's flat, and you're pulling the entire way. So you have to start slow to do that. If you start fast, you're going to slow down automatically. The human body cannot start fast and accelerate. If we start fast, we'll automatically start to slow down. We've talked about that before. The trick is to start slow. Low lift, smoothly into the sweep, keep it low, keep it flat, and keep continuous tension. Keep pulling all the way through, and for that you need to start slow. And then you can go up into the firing position, and you've got a D-loop that's flying back with energy, and you're in great shape. Because when it goes back with energy, we've talked about this before, when that D-loop starts going back with energy, it automatically loads the rod just from the energy in the D-loop. You haven't done anything, and it's already starting to load the rod. So before you even begin your forward stroke, you've got some load to start with. That's great. Anytime you've got load to start with before you begin your forward stroke, you've got a great cast in the making. So that's basically it. It's all controlled by the lift and the beginning of the sweep. You get a screwed up D-loop if you start fast and high, and you'll improve your D-loops immensely, and you'll have lots of energy in them. If your lift starts low, it goes smoothly into the sweep, and you start slow. So low and slow to start, and then away it goes. That's all it takes. It's that high, fast lift that screws it up every time. So keep that in mind. If you have problems getting a decent D-loop, look at your lift, because that's where all the problems start. You start high, go higher, and go fast, you're in trouble. Do the reverse, and you'll have a great D-loop. Cheers.